Question 8 deals with one of my favorite topics, genetics. Yay! So let's take a look at genetic variation. Okay, so it's a variety in genetic combinations. Some of us might even, if you're feeling, extra spicy that day, you can say genotypes in a population, all of that works. Environmental variation due to differences in the environment, whatever the organism is exposed to. Right? Really straightforward. And what does DNA mean? Deoxyribonucleic acid. Okay, sickle cell anemia, genetic disease. You are comparing the red blood cell of someone with sickle cell. This is a normal red blood cell. Disease, they have a sickle shape and they are less flexible. The person's blood has a reduced ability to transport oxygen. Your blood count is low because sickle cells, they don't last as long as normal red blood cells. That's where the anemia comes in. And of course, you get the symptoms of anemia, which is that you're weak and you get tired easily. And you also have painful episodes whenever the blood cells get stuck in capillaries of joints and other parts of the body. And now the next one that involves doing a genetic diagram. I'm going to another screen to go through this genetic diagram. Right, so here we have our genetic diagram. All right, notice I started from scratch down. So this is the first time you're seeing a genetic diagram. You can play this a million times and learn how to do it. So this is basically your key. How is normal represented? How is albino represented? You also make a little note to indicate what your answer is. Basically that normal parents can produce an albino child if they are both heterozygous. And then you do your diagram. So the first line is parental phenotypes. They're both normal. Parental genotypes now, using the symbols that you provided with. A would be a dominant, the dominant normal allele, and A common A would be your recessive allele, and that would be for one parent. Remember, this is sexual reproduction, so you have two parents. So one parent would have this genotype. The other parent would also have this genotype because remember I said that both are heterozygous. And then the next step would be to indicate the gametes. So for every genotype, each of this will go into a different gamete. So A, so 50% of your gametes would be the dominant, would have the dominant version, and 50% will have your recessive version. Same here, 50%, 50%. And then you do your Punnett. This is what you call a Punnett square, where you line it up just like a little table. So you put the gametes for one parent one side on one header row, and then you write the gametes for the other parent on the header column, and then you just combine. So we have here, we have our combinations, right? I did some writing before I reappeared. Okay, and you get your new combinations, and then this guy over here is albino. That would be the albino combination. This is what would produce an albino child. And then we look at our ratios, and you notice that I put offspring, but also there's F1, the F1 offspring. And we have here 1 big A, 2 big A, small a, as you can see, and 1 small a. So those are your genotype ratios. And then we notice that this here, because normal condition is dominant, even if this person is heterozygous, they will also appear normal, and they will be known as carriers, but they would appear normal. So 1 plus 2, 3, normal, and then one of them is albino, would have the albino condition, And this, of course, shows us that it is possible to produce an albino child. You're looking at a 1/4, right? 1 plus 3, 4, 1/4, or 25% probability, 25% chance. And that's your genetic diagram. Okay, so we have here several diseases and what are the causative agents for each of them. So for genital herpes, we have herpes simplex virus. For gonorrhea, we have the bacterium, Gonococcus gonorrhea. For AIDS, we have HIV, also known as human immunodeficiency virus. So here we have a pregnant woman is diagnosed with genital herpes, 2 effects this may have on the baby. Now note the chance of a baby getting infected is actually kind of small, except under very specific conditions. But if the baby does get infected, there are some major issues. So the child could either develop a skin infection, which would be the better option, honestly. But the child can also develop a system-wide infection, meaning that various organ systems get infected. And that one is more serious and life-threatening. You have problems like blindness, jaundice, seizure. All these things start happening. How do you limit the spread of STIs? You have all these options here. Any two or any others that I have not mentioned already can be provided in this answer. Feel free to add any further suggestions in the comments below. Let's have a little discussion, okay? And I'll just leave that for a little bit. You can pause it if you need to make any notes. And this one now this one is interesting because even I at first read, I was like, what in the world could that be a bad thing? But there are some very reasonable, drawbacks. So let's take a look at some of them. So firstly, in light of the knowledge of antiviral drugs being around, you may have a situation where people now would become less careful in terms of their activities. They stop following all the precautions that people have been drumming into their heads, telling themselves, well, okay, don't worry about it. Even if I get AIDS, there are drugs now, I can get cured. And that can cause a problem because even if, yes, there are drugs to treat you, increased infection rates can really take a toll on the health system. Another possible drawback is that these drugs are not like Panadol. Okay, it's not like an over-the-counter drug that you take when you remember. It's something you have to take very precisely. You have to take the full dose. You have to take it at a certain time. Some you have to eat, some of them you have to take it before you eat, some of them you have to take after you eat, all of that. And you have the chance of a lot of patients not taking the drugs fully, which then leaves the door open for further mutations to develop in the population. And then the drugs are expensive. Some countries, you have a public health system and they will provide the drugs to you for free. Yeah, it's free to you, but it's not free to the government, and they would have to pay that cost. So those are some of the drawbacks you can consider for a question like this. Any other thoughts come to mind? Please feel free to add it to the comments below. Let's have a nice discussion about it. Now let's move on. Activities of human beings that have led to serious problems of pollution. So 3 types of pollution: land, water, air, noise. Thermal pollution is another one, right? And we have here, next question. Eutrophication. What is eutrophication? Now, eutrophication actually is a natural process. As a body of water gets older, as it ages, the nutrient levels will increase over time. However, the eutrophication that comes from human activity and the dumping of pollutants into these water bodies, that is what causes the devastating effects, because now you have a process that's supposed to be gradual is now happening really quickly. The part in brackets, that's just a little aside. And then we have the various chemicals. We have detergents, we have sewage, and we have agricultural activities. So we have detergents which are rich in phosphates, and phosphates are a nutrient for plant growth. So you basically cause a huge jump in the nutrient level in the water body. You have sewage, which provides a lot of organic matter. We know what the organic matter is, right? And the bacteria in the ecosystem breaks those down to further more nutrients. And we have fertilizers, which are like, nutrients heavy, right? You have all the various nutrients that are ideal for plant growth, especially nitrates, and that also can run off into nearby water bodies with rainfall. So you have sewage not being disposed of properly. Any two of these diseases, we are identifying two diseases, any two, and you will probably know some more. Again, feel free to add it in the comments below. I listed diseases like cholera, typhoid, dysentery, gastroenteritis, schistosomiasis, that's the one that's spread by snails, and hookworm, right? And there are others, but these are the main ones that would come to mind. And we have methods of proper sewage disposal. There are many ways you can do that. The first one is the basic strategy across the board. You remove them in pipes. You do not have them open to the air and in touch with where people could access it, or where it could get in touch with your water supplies, with your drinking and potable water supplies. And you flush it out with water so that it doesn't, get stuck. The other three, those are different levels. So you have a pit latrine in more rural areas. You have your flush toilets connected to a septic tank that's at a small scale, household level. And then like for huge towns and cities, you have sewage being carried to central sewage works where it can be treated. Right, so now we've gotten to section B, where we are going to take a look at essay type questions, structured essay type, I should say. And I answered those questions in another space, so we will go here now. Okay, so let's take a look at question 11. Right, you would have looked at it already, and hopefully you would have written your own version of the answer. And this is part A. All right, so part A, any three can be used to describe name as chronic diseases. And then non-drug forms of therapy, again, we have these options. So why does weight increase lead to increased blood pressure? Well, because your blood pressure is controlled by a lot of things. One of it is actually your sympathetic nervous system. That's the nervous system that is not under your conscious control, but that controls things like your blood pressure, your heart rate, etc. Your body seems to respond to weight increase like a stress response. So when you put on weight, your sympathetic nervous system gets overactive and then works to increase your blood pressure. How overweight can lead to diabetes. You can read it and pause it if you need to. Make notes if you need to. This is important. It says here, as a depressant drug, because there are many effects of alcohol, long-term effects, health effects, diuretic effects, what happens the next morning, lots of things are connected to alcohol. But when they say as a depressant drug, you're going to focus on those effects. What are the effects of it slowing down? So you have to be able to show that you understand what depressant drug means. It slows down nerve impulses. and these are the results. And then question 12, again this part is self-explanatory, so I'll let you take a look at that. You can pause if you need to, and make sure you get your answers correct. Again, this is somewhat self-explanatory. Of course, you're going to be emphasizing the first two, your balanced diet plus what you need extra of. And you can also talk about, maybe mention one or two things, one thing to limit, one thing to avoid, to wrap up your whole answer. Again, pause if you need to. Again, as we're going through this, if you have questions, if you have additional points you want to make, you want to add to the answers, you want to query an answer, etc., please let me know in the comments below. So this is health advice that the pregnant lady would get. And then the next one, taking care of teeth. Oh my God, you know, I'm not even going to. There are your answers, okay? Of course, you don't have to pick all of it. The most important ones are the first three. Now let's go to question 13. Okay, so the first part is straightforward, right? A is larva, B, pupa, C, adult. Feeding stages, so those are the active stages. A, which is of course the larval stage, it does a lot of eating around that time. Adult, of course, will be eating and reproducing and doing all the other stuff that living organisms do. So the non-feeding stage would be stage B. So here we have part B. You have many reasons why disease outbreaks occur. Any three of the following would be useful, would apply. You have your symptoms of ringworm, you have your symptoms of, you have the fungus tinea that causes ringworm, that also causes athlete's foot. It's just in a different location and produces different symptoms, yeah? And the treatment of disease. How do you treat it? And then spend some time here. We're looking at how do you prevent the spread or control the spread of this disease. These are your options. Those with the ticks are the more important ones. If you only could talk about 3 to 4 points, focus on those. Tick the points. You can check it against your answer. And then we have question 14. Let's look at the answers for A to B. And now let's take a look at question C to D. And that's it for 2010, 14 questions. Wow, thank goodness you don't have to do that anymore, but it's a wonderful paper to use when you want to do some revision and get a broad overview of the entire syllabus. And that is why this is the year that I chose to cover with you, right? So stay tuned, make sure to subscribe and turn on the notifications so that you would be notified when that new video comes out. Videos are going to be out every week. So stay tuned, turn on that notification, get subscribed, and let's get ready for this exam together. Okay, take care.